Prologue. From Delphi to the labors, the ashes of Python still swirled in the wind above Delphi. The land, once poisoned by shadow, had been reborn in the light of Apollo's triumph. Mortals flocked to the spring, their voices raised in awe and prayer, the first whispers of prophecy stirring in the oracle's breath. Delphi had become a beacon of divine truth. Yet, even as dawn crowned Apollo's victory, the gods of Olympus looked beyond. For Gaia's wrath had not ended with Python. Monsters yet walked the earth, born from Typhon and Echidna, their claws set against the fragile lives of mortals. Shadows stirred in caves, forests, and oceans, waiting for their moment to strike. Among mortals, too, storms brewed. Kings grew greedy, empires thirsted for conquest, and men forgot the humility owed to gods. The balance trembled. The world required a new champion, and so the gaze of Olympus turned toward one man, Heracles, son of Zeus and Alcmene, a mortal born of divine blood, cursed with rage, yet destined for greatness. His life would not be one of peace, but of trials, each labor a step upon the path of legend. The first of these trials awaited him in the hills of Nemea, where a lion unlike any other stalked the land. Its hide was unpierceable, its roar shook mountains, and its hunger devoured whole villages. From the ashes of Delphi's serpent rose the roar of a lion, the next monster to challenge the will of Olympus. Thus begins the second tale, Heracles versus the Nemean Lion. Heracles versus the Nemean Lion. The Nemean Lion Labor, Chapter 1. The curse of Hera, the night of Heracles' birth, was not a night of peace. Over Thebes, clouds gathered like the hands of an angry goddess, swallowing moon and stars. The midwives whispered prayers to Hestia as thunder rolled across the hills, and the cries of a newborn shook the chamber. In that cry was the strength of a god, the blood of Zeus coursing through mortal veins. Alcmene, noble daughter of Electrion, lay pale but proud, her eyes fixed upon the child, his fists clenched as though he were born ready for battle, his chest heaving with the breath of storms. Yet outside the chamber, unseen by mortals, the queen of Olympus watched Hera, consort of Zeus, eternal rival of his infidelities. She knew this infant was another insult carved into her divine flesh. Her hatred was as old as time, and it burned brighter than Hephaestus' forge. Another bastard, she hissed, her voice echoing like venom in the halls of Olympus. Another reminder that my husband's oaths mean nothing. But this one, this son of Alcmene, he will not grow to defy me. From the shadows, she summoned 2 serpents, each vast as rivers, their scales gleaming with the venom of night. She sent them slithering into the mortal chamber, their tongues tasting the air, heavy with newborn breath. Alcmene screamed when she saw them. The midwives fled in terror, yet the infant did not weep. Heracles turned, as though some ancient memories stirred in him, and with hands too small for such power, he reached. The serpents struck, but Heracles seized their throats, one in each hand, and squeezed. Their coils crushed the cradle, their fangs dripped poison, yet the infant only tightened his grip. The gods themselves watched in silence as the child strangled Hera's assassins with the strength of Olympus in his blood. When dawn rose, the serpents lay broken at his feet. Hera's wrath was not ended, but deepened. The childhood of strength, years passed, and Heracles grew not like other boys. He wrestled lions before he had seen his 10th summer. He learned the bow and the club, his arms swelling with the strength of giants. Yet for every triumph, Hera's curse followed him. She set shadows in his path, madness in his dreams, rage in his blood. Chiron, the wise centaur, taught him wisdom and music, for strength alone could not master destiny. Yet, when Heracles held the lyre, his fingers broke strings. When he sang, his voice shook walls. He was not meant for gentleness. He was meant for war. And Hera waited. The madness of blood when manhood crowned him. Heracles wed Megara, daughter of King Creon. She was beauty woven in mortal form, and with her he found fleeting peace. Children filled their halls, laughter spilled across the hearth, and for a moment Hera's curse seemed broken. But curses are not so easily undone. Hera descended upon his mind like a storm upon the sea. In a night of madness, Heracles saw not his wife and children, but enemies clad in shadow. His hands, so used to crushing monsters, fell upon those he loved. Their cries echoed, and when the veil lifted, the hero stood alone in blood and ruin. The curse of Hera was complete. Exile and shame. Thebes could not bear the sight of him. Even Creon, who once called him son, turned away in horror. The people whispered, Godslayer, Kinkiller, cursed of Olympus. Heracles wandered the hills, his club dragging, his spirit shattered. He sought death in the jaws of beasts, yet even death fled from him. No blade pierced his skin, no poison claimed his veins. His was a life chained to fate. At last he climbed to Delphi, where the smoke of Apollo's victory over Python still lingered. There, beneath the gaze of the new oracle, he cast himself upon the stones. God of light, he cried, tell me how I may be free. Tell me how a son of Zeus may be cleansed of Hera's curse. I would rather labor until my bones shatter than live with this blood upon my hands. And the oracle spoke, her voice woven with Apollo's power. You shall serve King Eurystheus of Tyrants. 12 labors shall be laid upon you, each greater than the last. Through them you shall carve your path from mortal shame to immortal glory. The first awaits in Nemea, where a lion roars against the land, its hide unpierceable, its hunger endless. Slay it, and take its skin as your armor. Thus shall your legend begin. Heracles rose, fire rekindled in his eyes. The path would be cruel, but his heart was already forged in suffering. He would bear the labors, not as punishment, but as proof that no curse knot, even Hera's, could shatter his destiny. Closing of chapter 1. And so, from the ashes of madness, rose the first step of redemption. The Lion of Nemea awaited a beast no mortal could slay. But Heracles was no mere mortal. He was the storm, born of Zeus' will, cursed and chosen, doomed and destined. The curse of Hera had shaped his path. Now the labor of gods would test his soul. Chapter 2. The Oracle of Delphi. The road to Delphi was carved by the footsteps of kings and beggars alike. Yet never had it borne the weight of a man so broken and so destined as Heracles. His shoulders, broad as city gates, sagged under the burden of his crime. The wind whispered of his madness, carrying the tale of the blood he had spilled. Wherever he walked, mortals turned away, for in his eyes burned a fury, not wholly his own, a fire stoked by Hera's endless hatred. But Delphi was no ordinary place. It was a land reborn, still echoing with the clash of Apollo and Python. The stones glowed faintly, as though blood from the slain serpent had seeped into the earth. Smoke curled upward from the sacred hearth, heavy with the scent of laurel, and the air itself seemed alive with voices that were not mortal. Heracles climbed the marble steps, until he stood before the temple, its columns white as bone beneath the blazing sun. He felt small and unusual sensation for one who had slain lions with his bare hands and wrestled giants in childhood games. For this was not a hall of men, but of gods. The oracle appears inside the sanctuary. Shadows danced with firelight. The priestesses of Apollo, clad in flowing robes, bowed as the hero entered. Their eyes held neither fear nor reverence, but something deeper, recognition. One stepped forward, the Pythia, chosen vessel of Apollo's will. Her hair shimmered as though woven with threads of sunlight, her breath carrying the perfume of prophecy. She looked upon Heracles, and for a moment her gaze pierced through his flesh, seeing the storm-tossed spirit within. "You come not as conqueror," she said, her voice both mortal and divine, "but as supplicant. The weight of blood clings to you, son of Zeus. Hera's curse festers in your veins. Do you seek release, or merely pardon?" Heracles bowed his head, his fists clenched against the ache of memory. "I seek redemption. Tell me what I must do. Command me, and I will obey even if it tears me apart." The temple trembled. From the smoke rose a shape of golden flame, the presence of Apollo himself. "Then hear, Heracles, no man may cleanse himself of blood so vile without trial. You shall serve King Eurystheus of Tyrants, though he is weaker than you, smaller than you, and unworthy of you. He shall command, and you shall obey. Through his orders, 12 labors will bind your name to eternity. Endure, and you will ascend beyond mortal fate." Heracles raised his eyes, and fire glimmered in them. "I will endure." The first labor, decreed the Pythia, inhaled the fumes of prophecy, her body trembling as visions swirled before her. When she spoke again, her words were no longer her own. "In the hills of Nemea roams a lion not born of flesh, but of nightmare. Its roar shakes earth and sky. Villages crumble, flocks vanish, and children are taken. The land cries out for deliverance." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper heavy with doom. "Seek the lion, slay it, take its skin as your armor, for only such proof will silence the whispers of Hera. This is your first labor. In its failure, your curse shall remain eternal." The words hung like chains upon the air, the weight of destiny. For a long moment, Heracles said nothing. His breath was steady, his gaze fixed upon the glowing smoke. He thought of his slain children, of Megra's gentle smile, now lost to blood. He thought of the laughter of men who whispered of his madness. And deep within, he thought of Hera, watching, waiting for him to stumble into ruin. At last he spoke. "If the lion is death made flesh, then I will meet it. If no weapon may pierce it, then I will use my hands. If its roar shakes the earth, then I will roar louder. I am Heracles, son of Zeus. No curse will bind me forever." The Pythia's lips curved into a shadow of a smile. "So it is spoken. So it shall be." Departure from Delphi. Heracles left the temple as the sun dipped westward, casting long shadows across the marble steps. The people of Delphi whispered as he passed, some in fear, some in hope. Children peered from behind their mothers' skirts, staring at the towering man who walked with the weight of both god and monster upon his shoulders. Before he departed, he knelt at the sacred spring, washing his hands in its cool waters. The ripples shivered, and for a moment he thought he saw Apollo's reflection staring back, a reminder that the gods were watching. With his lion-skin cloak thrown aside, his bow slung across his back, and his club gripped in his fist, Heracles descended from Delphi, heading toward the wild hills of Nemea. The path stretched long, twisting through forests where owls mourned and wolves prowled. Each step carried him farther from the ashes of shame and closer to the jaws of destiny. The first labor had begun. Closing of chapter 2. And so Heracles departed Delphi, his heart torn between sorrow and resolve, his spirit burning with the promise of redemption. The oracle had spoken. The Nemean Lion awaited him, a beast no mortal could fell. But Heracles was no mere mortal. He was the storm-born son of Zeus, cursed by Hera, chosen by fate. From the light of Apollo's temple, he walked into the dark mouth of legend. Chapter 3. The Journey to Nemea. The road from Delphi to Nemea wound through valleys scarred by ancient wars and forests where the shadows of old gods still lingered. For most men, the journey was one of weeks. For Heracles, it was the first march of destiny. The son of Zeus strode with heavy steps, his club resting across his shoulder like a banner of defiance. Upon his back hung a quiver of arrows fletched with eagle feathers, though in his heart he knew no shaft could pierce the hide of the beast he sought. Still, he carried them, for he was a warrior, and warriors must be armed even against the impossible. Above him, clouds gathered, trailing Hera's silent malice. The goddess had not forgotten. From Olympus, her eyes followed every footfall, her whispers stirring the winds. "Go, bastard son," she hissed. "Walk into the lion's maw. Your strength shall fail you, and your name shall be ash." But fate had been written, and not even the queen of gods could erase what the Moirai had spun. Encounters on the road. On the first night, Heracles found shelter in a shepherd's hut. The old man trembled when he saw the hero's shadow fill the doorway. 4 tales of Heracles' madness had spread far across Hellas, yet when he recognized the serpent slayer of infancy, the strong man whose hands bore the strength of Olympus, the shepherd fell to his knees. "Do not fear," Heracles said, his voice like stone cracking. "I seek only bread and a fire." The shepherd, humbled, spoke of the lion. His words painted a picture darker than prophecy. "It comes with dusk. No spear strikes true. No trap holds it. It carries off sheep as though they were feathers, and men vanish with their bones left gnawed. We have buried sons, daughters, brothers all, beneath the shadow of its roar. Lord, if you go to Nemea, you walk into death." Heracles listened in silence, his jaw set. When the old man begged him to turn back, the hero only answered, "Death does not frighten me. Shame does." And at dawn, he left, the cries of the shepherd echoing in the still air, omens of the lion. The closer he came to Nemea, the heavier the world grew. Forests fell silent, their birds muted as though swallowed by dread. Deer no longer leaped in the glades, and even wolves slunk away at the scent that lingered in the grass. One evening, as he camped upon a ridge, Heracles heard it roar. It rolled across the hills like thunder torn from the belly of earth, a sound that cracked stone and made his blood stir. No beast of flesh could sing such terror. This was no lion of nature. This was a monster born of chaos, perhaps kin to Typhon's brood, a thing meant to challenge gods. Heracles gripped his club, staring into the darkness where the roar had risen. His lips curved into a grim smile. At last, the temptation of doubt, yet even the son of Zeus was not free from doubt. That night, as he sat by his fire, Hera's voice came to him in dream. She appeared as a queen of shadows, her crown woven from serpents, her eyes burning with loathing. "Do you think strength alone will save you? You are no god. You are no king. you are filth in Zeus' cloak, a stain upon Olympus. The lion will rip your bones asunder, and the world will forget your name. Heracles rose within the dream, his fists trembling with rage. If I am filth, then let filth strangle the beast. If I am a stain, then let that stain be written in blood upon the earth. I will not break Hera, not by your will. He awoke with dawn, sweat upon his brow, but his spirit unbroken. The villages of fear. By the 6th day, Heracles came upon the outskirts of Nemea. Villages lay hushed, their streets deserted, doors barred with makeshift barricades. Where once smoke had risen from hearths, only silence hung. A child no older than 7 peered from a crack in a shutter. His eyes widened at the sight of the towering man, and he whispered, "The lion will eat you, stranger. It eats everyone." Heracles knelt, his massive frame lowering, until he met the child's frightened gaze. He spoke gently, though his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "No, little one, it will not eat everyone. It will eat no more." The child's eyes filled with tears of belief. For in Heracles' tone there was no boast, no false courage only, a truth that could not be shaken. Approach to the lair, guided by the whispers of survivors. Heracles learned the beast's lair lay in the hills above a cave system so deep that no man who entered had ever returned. The earth itself seemed scarred by the monster's claws, trees shredded as though by storms, stones cracked beneath the weight of its passing. Standing at the mouth of the valley, Heracles felt the air thicken with dread. Birds wheeled far above, circling as if waiting for carrion. The grass beneath his feet was slick with blood not yet dried. He raised his club and rested it upon his shoulder, his silhouette carved against the dying sun. "This is where fate begins," he murmured, "not in shame, not in blood, but in battle." Closing of chapter 3. And so Heracles reached Nemea, where the earth trembled with the roar of a beast not born for mortal steel. Behind him lay the shame of madness. Before him stood the first trial of redemption. The lion waited, its golden hide impervious, its hunger endless. The hunter had come. The hunted would soon know fear. Chapter 4. The shadow of the lion. The valley of Nemea lay beneath a pall of silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of fear and emptiness, where birds did not sing, where wolves did not howl, where the very wind seemed to hold its breath. Heracles stepped carefully, each footfall crunching against shattered bones hidden in the tall grass. The villagers had not lied. Here, the lion was king. Its dominion was marked not by temples or banners, but by the ruins of men. First signs of the beast. As dusk fell, Heracles climbed the ridges above the valley, seeking the beast's lair. He found claw marks gouged into stone, furrows in the earth deeper than a man's arm, and trees twisted by a monstrous strength. A stench lingered in the air and rot, the perfume of slaughter. Then came the sound, low at first, like the rumble of an earthquake beneath the ground. It swelled into a roar that shattered the silence, echoing across cliffs and forests, a sound not born of nature. The mountains themselves seemed to bow before it. Heracles gripped his club, his jaw set. "So, you are near." The first encounter. The lion emerged as the sun's last light bled across the horizon. It did not stalk like mortal beasts. It strode, each step shaking the earth, its mane glimmering like threads of fire in the dying light. Its eyes burned with a golden fury, and when it opened its jaws, the air reeked of blood and decay. Heracles had fought beasts before, but never one such as this. The Nemean lion was not merely a predator, was a nightmare given flesh, born of Typhon's brood, whispered to be the child of Echidna herself. Its hide gleamed like bronze, unmarked by any wound. It stopped upon a ridge opposite the hero, its gaze locking upon him. The world narrowed. Man and monster regarded one another, each measuring the other. Then the lion roared. The ground split with the force of it, stones tumbling down slopes, birds erupted from trees, fleeing in chaos. Heracles staggered beneath the sound, his ears ringing, but he did not fall. Instead, he raised his club high and bellowed back, a roar of man-defying monster. The lion's eyes narrowed. For the first time, it knew this prey was different. The first clash, without warning, the beast leaped. Faster than any mortal eye could follow, it covered the distance, claws gleaming like blades. Heracles swung his club with all his might. The wood cracked against the lion's skull with a sound like thunder. The beast did not bleed. The lion landed its body unharmed, and with a swipe of its paw sent Heracles sprawling into the dirt. The earth shook beneath the impact, dust rising around him. Yet the son of Zeus rose, spitting blood, fury burning in his veins. Again he swung his club. Again the beast endured. Arrows shattered upon its hide, spears splintered like twigs. The Nemean lion was invulnerable. Heracles' mind raced. The oracle spoke, "True, no weapon will pierce its skin. Then only my hands will suffice." The hunt begins. The lion lunged once more, its jaws snapping shut inches from his throat. Heracles rolled aside, his massive frame moving with the swiftness of a warrior born for war. He struck again and again, not to wound, but to drive the beast backward. The two circled, predator and prey, though neither could claim either role. Heracles' chest heaved, sweat stinging his eyes, while the lion paced with silent fury, its tail lashing like a whip. The cave loomed behind the beasta, yawning black maw in the hillside. Heracles' gaze flickered toward it, and in that moment he understood. This was no ordinary den. It was a labyrinth of stone, with two entrances. If the lion retreated there, it could vanish and strike unseen. He would have to trap it. A moment of desperation. Night fell, and the stars gleamed above, cold witnesses to the battle below. The lion struck again, its claws tearing furrows in the earth. Heracles barely dodged, his muscles screaming, his body battered. His club lay shattered in splinters, his bow useless. For the first time in years, Heracles tasted the bitterness of helplessness. The invincible beast towered before him, its roar shaking his bones, its eyes glowing like twin suns of wrath. And then, amidst despair, came clarity. "This is not the labor of weapons," he muttered. "This is the labor of will. If I cannot pierce its hide, then I will crush its breath. If no steel may wound it, then I shall become steel." Closing of Chapter 4. The lion withdrew into its cave, its golden form swallowed by shadow. Heracles followed at a distance, his mind already shaping a plan. He would block the lair, seal the beast within, and face it in the dark, where no arrow, no spear, and no sun could aid either of them. The hunt was no longer about weapons. It was a contest of strength, divine against monstrous, immortal blood against cursed flesh. The shadow of the lion had fallen across Heracles. Soon, one shadow would vanish. Chapter 5. The hunt begins. The hills of Nemea shuddered with each roar of the lion. From the caves and ravines, the echoes spread like thunder, rolling across the world. Villagers hid behind barred doors, praying that the storm of claws and fangs would pass them by. But Heracles did not hide. He rose with the dawn, his body marked with dust and bruises, and his gaze fixed upon the wilderness where the beast roamed. The son of Zeus had faced his first clash with the monster, and though he still lived, he had learned the truth. No weapon forged by man could pierce the lion's hide. To slay the beast, he would need not cunning alone, nor brute strength alone, but both. And so the hunt began. Tracking the beast, Heracles knelt upon the ground, his massive hands brushing the soil. Tracks as wide as shields carved deep furrows into the earth. Trees bore scars of claws that stripped bark as easily as a man might peel fruit. The trail reeked of blood, sharp and metallic, guiding him deeper into the wilderness. He followed the signs into a grove where the stench grew unbearable. There, beneath the shade of oaks, lay the carcasses of goats, torn asunder, bones cracked clean in two. Among them, he found the remains of men shepherds, perhaps warriors left, broken and unburied. Heracles stood silent, rage simmering in his chest. "You will pay for this," he swore. From somewhere in the hills, a roar answered, as if the lion mocked his vow. The stalk for days, the hunter pursued the hunted, though neither truly claimed that role. At dawn, Heracles searched ravines where shadows lingered thick. At dusk, he combed the cliffs where the beast might sun itself upon stone. Often, he caught only glimpses, a mane flashing gold between trees, eyes gleaming in the dark, a shadow vanishing into thickets. The lion was no ordinary quarry. It watched him as much as he watched it. Once, as he knelt to drink from a stream, the water rippled with the reflection of the beast behind him. He turned, club raised, but it had already melted into the forest, leaving only the echo of its growl. This was no simple hunt. It was a duel of patience, of endurance, and Heracles knew he could not falter. The trap conceived on the third night, Heracles sat upon a boulder, staring at the mouth of the lion's lair. He studied its twin entrances, one to the east where the dawn broke, one to the west where shadows fell. A cave with two mouths meant a beast could vanish endlessly, slipping from pursuit like smoke through fingers. But stone could be moved, and Heracles' strength was greater than any mortal's. If he could block one entrance with boulders, sealing the beast within, he would force it into a single path. There, in the narrow dark, no retreat would be possible. "It will be you or me," he murmured into the night. No hiding, no running. The chase through the hills the next day, Heracles set his plan in motion. He scoured the hills for the beast, driving it with shouts and stones, forcing it toward the caves. The lion, enraged by this audacity, fought back fiercely. From a ridge, it pounced, jaws snapping inches from his throat. Heracles hurled his shattered club to drive it back, then chased it through gullies and streams. The earth quaked beneath their pursuitmen and monster, locked in a dance of fury. At one point, the lion circled behind him, ambushing from shadows. Its claws tore across his shoulder, blood spilling hot and bright. Heracles staggered but did not fall. He seized a branch, thick as a spear, and swung with godlike force, striking the beast across its muzzle. The blow hurled it aside, but still, no wound marked its hide. Panting, Heracles pressed forward. To the cave, he growled, "Run home, beast. Run where I want you." The ceiling of the cave at last. The lion fled toward its den, roaring its frustration. Heracles pursued relentlessly, until both stood before the gaping black mouths of stone. The beast slipped inside, vanishing into the dark. Heracles wasted no time. He bent his knees, braced his shoulders, and heaved. With a roar that shook the mountains, he dragged a boulder larger than a house across one entrance. The ground trembled beneath its weight, stone grinding against stone until the passage was sealed. Sweat drenched his brow, his muscles burned, but his eyes gleamed with grim satisfaction. One entrance remained. The trap was set. From within the cave, the lion's roar erupted, echoing like the wrath of an imprisoned god. It struck the sealed wall, the stone trembling under its blows, but the boulder held. Heracles gripped his fists. Now it is only you and me. No escape. Closing of Chapter 5. Night fell upon Nemea once more, the hills echoing with the beast's fury and the hunter's resolve. The cave stood half-sealed, a tomb waiting for its occupant. Inside, the monster prowled, its golden hide glowing faintly in the dark. Heracles stood at the remaining entrance, his body bruised, his blood dripping, his spirit unyielding. He had cornered the beast, but the true battle had yet to begin. The hunt was over. The reckoning would come with dawn. Chapter 6. The Trap of Stone. The cave of the lion yawned like a wound in the mountain, its shadows stretching into endless night. From deep within, the beast prowled restlessly, its growls rising and falling like waves striking cliffs. Heracles stood before the single open mouth of the cavern, his chest heaving from the exertion of dragging stone, his body still bleeding from claw marks across his shoulder. Yet he did not falter. The hunter's will was steel, and his mind was clear. This was the final stage of the hunt. The lion was trapped, and so was he. The weight of the mountain. At dawn, Heracles set himself to the labor of sealing the second entrance. He climbed the hills, searching for a boulder large enough to serve his purpose. At last, he found Aton, ancient stone fractured from the mountain by some forgotten quake, its surface scarred with cracks, its weight immense. Bracing his legs, Heracles pushed. His hands sank into the stone's roughness. His veins bulged. Sweat ran like rivers down his arms. The earth beneath his feet groaned as he heaved. With a roar of effort, he moved the boulder, inch by inch, dragging it toward the cave's mouth. The lion, sensing the scheme, hurled itself against the stone from within. The ground quivered as claws raked against rock, but the passage remained blocked. Heracles' laughter echoed across the valley. "Strike as you will, monster," he shouted. "The mountain is stronger than your rage." By nightfall, both entrances were sealed, and only one narrow gap remained where man and beast could meet face to face. The prison of darkness. Heracles stepped inside the cave, leaving behind the light of the sun. Shadows swallowed him whole, and the air grew heavy with the stink of blood and musk. He could hear the beast's breath, hot and slow, like bellows feeding a forge. His hands reached along the walls, rough and damp with dew. Each step echoed, and each echo was answered by the shifting of claws upon stone. The lion was close. The clash in the dark, the attack, came without warning. From the gloom, a mass of golden muscles surged, its roar bursting like thunder. The impact hurled Heracles against the cavern wall, his breath ripped from his chest. Claws slashed across his arm, sparks flying as if stone itself had been struck. Heracles countered, seizing his club of olive wood. He swung with godlike might, the blow cracking against the lion's skull. The cavern boomed with the impact, dust falling from the ceiling. But when the dust cleared, the beast still stood, touched, unbroken. Its hide shimmered in the dim light, impenetrable as bronze. Heracles' jaw clenched. "So be it," he growled. "If wood and iron cannot break you, then these hands shall." The grapple of titans. The lion lunged again, jaws wide enough to engulf his head. Heracles thrust his arm into its maw, muscles straining, forcing the beast's jaws apart. Fangs sharper than swords sank into his skin, blood spilling freely. But he did not cry out. Instead, he wrapped his other arm around its neck, locking the creature in a grip of iron. The cave shook as man and monster wrestled, their roars mingling, echoing through the hills of Nemea. The lion thrashed, claws tearing furrows into Heracles' flesh. It twisted, slammed him against the wall, tried to crush him beneath its weight. Yet Heracles held fast, tightening his grip, his arms like chains forged by the gods. Slowly, inexorably, he dragged the beast to the ground. His legs wrapped around its torso, pinning it, his hands closing upon its throat. The silence after the storm, the battle raged, until the cavern shook, until Heracles' breath came ragged and blood streamed down his arms. At last, the lion's roars grew faint, its struggles weaker. With one final surge, Heracles squeezed, his veins bursting with strain, his teeth clenched like stone. Then came silence. The lion lay still, its golden hide gleaming faintly in the dark. Its breath ceased. Heracles released it, falling to his knees, his chest heaving. Sweat and blood drenched him, but triumph burned in his eyes. The Nemean Lion was dead. The immortal hide as dawn light crept into the cave. Heracles dragged the beast into the open. The villagers of Nemea, drawn by the silence after nights of terror, gathered in awe. Their voices rose in disbelief, then in joy. But Heracles' task was not yet done. He sought to skin the beast, to take its hide as proof of his victory. Yet every blade shattered, every arrow splintered, every edge dulled against that immortal pelt. Frustrated, he struck the hide with stones, with sharpened bronze, with iron tipped in fire, but nothing pierced it. At last, Athena herself descended, veiled in a shimmer of divine light. She spoke gently, "Use the lion's own claws, son of Zeus. Only they may cut what no blade can wound." Heracles obeyed. With the beast's talons, he flayed its skin. When the work was done, he draped the hide across his shoulders, the head resting upon his brow like a crown. The people gasped, for he looked less man than god, invincible, terrible, and glorious. Closing of chapter 6. Thus ended the labor of Nemea. The lion lay dead, its terror silenced forever. Upon his shoulders, Heracles bore its skin, a mantle of immortality, proof of his strength and cunning. But even as he stood in triumph, he knew this was only the beginning. Eurystheus waited, and the labors yet to come would test him beyond this first conquest. For though the Nemean Lion had fallen, darker beasts awaited in the shadows of the world. Chapter 7. The Triumph and Return. The sun rose, high above the hills of Nemea, casting golden light across the valley that had once trembled with fear. Now the roars of the lion were gone, replaced by the songs of birds and the quiet murmur of a people reborn from terror. And at the center of it all stood Heracles, his body battered and bloodied, yet his spirit shining brighter than the morning star. Draped across his broad shoulders was the pelt of the lion, its golden fur gleaming like fire in the sun. Upon his head rested the beast's crown of fangs, a helm of death transformed into a symbol of triumph. The villagers gathered in awe. They had known fear for months, perhaps years, but now they saw deliverance in the form of one man. Children crept closer, staring wide-eyed at the hero who wore the monster like a cloak. Women raised their voices in blessings. Men offered gifts of bread and wine. For the first time in generations, hope outshone despair. A hero among the people. Heracles accepted no treasure, no gold, no feast for himself. Instead, he commanded that the villagers bury their dead and offer sacrifice to Zeus, king of the gods, in gratitude for deliverance. He joined them in the rites, pouring wine upon the earth, lifting his mighty arms to the sky. The smoke of burning offerings rose high, a column of thanks spiraling into the heavens. "May this valley know peace again," Heracles declared. "May no beast or tyrant ever again darken your doors." The people cheered, their voices echoing across the hills. Yet within their cheers was also reverence, for they knew this man was no ordinary mortal. He bore the strength of Olympus, and his eyes burned with a fire no human flame could match. The journey back. When the rites were done, Heracles set forth upon the road to Tiryns, the stronghold of King Eurystheus, who had commanded this labor. Across mountains and plains he walked, the hide of the lion dragging behind him, a weight immense but borne as lightly as if it were silk. Travelers who met him along the way stared in wonder, whispering his name as he passed. Some thought him a god disguised as man. Others feared him, for the pelt upon his back looked alive in the sun, its golden mane rippling like a beast still breathing. Heracles did not correct them. He walked in silence, his mind already fixed upon the trials yet to come. The king's terror. At last he came to Tiryns. Word of his approach reached the palace long before he entered, and Eurystheus, sitting upon his throne, trembled at the news. For though the king had hoped the lion would destroy Heracles, instead the hero had returned, greater and more fearsome than before. When Heracles strode into the hall, clad in the lion's hide, even the courtiers gasped and shrank back. The hero laid the carcass at the king's feet, the beast's empty eyes staring upward like twin pits of night. "This," Heracles said, his voice echoing like thunder, "is the lion of Nemea. Its terror is ended. Its pelt is mine." Eurystheus turned pale. He dared not even look at the hero directly, so terrible was his presence. Rising in fear, the king stammered, "Keep it. Keep the pelt and the claws. From this day forth, you shall wear them, for none but you could bear such a mantle. But never again bring the beasts you slay into my halls. Show me only proof from afar. I will not risk the wrath of such monsters at my feet again." Thus was it decreed. And so Heracles kept the hide as his armor, a gift of invulnerability. And never again would Eurystheus demand the body of a slain beast be brought into his presence. The mantle of the hero, in the days that followed, Heracles' fame spread across Greece. Poets sang of his victory, sculptors carved his likeness, and mothers told their children tales of the man who crushed the uncrushable beast. The lion's hide became his constant companion, its fur shielding him from arrows, its skull protecting him like a crown. To all who saw him, he was no longer just Heracles, son of Zeus, was a living legend, a warrior armored in the proof of his triumph. Yet Heracles himself remained humble. "It was not by my strength alone," he told those who praised him. "The gods guided my hand, and the wisdom of Athena showed me the way. A man is only as great as the trials he overcomes." Still, deep within, he knew each victory drew him closer to the immortality his father had promised, but only through pain, struggle, and blood, the shadow of future labors. But Eurystheus, though cowed, was not finished. Jealousy burned in his heart, and fear drove him to plot further torments. He believed that if one beast could not destroy Heracles, then perhaps another, fiercer, might. Already, rumors reached the court of a second trial, a swamp choked with poison, a monster with many heads, a terror greater still. And so, even as Heracles savored the peace of his first triumph, he knew rest would be fleeting. The road of labor stretched long before him. Closing of chapter 7. So Heracles returned from Nemea, clad in glory and blood, bearing the hide of the beast as both trophy and armor. The people hailed him as savior. The king shrank from him in fear, and the world whispered his name with awe. But the gods, watching from Olympus, knew that this was but the first step upon a path written in fate. For Heracles' destiny was not measured by one lion, but by 12 labors, each more terrible than the last. And somewhere, in the swamps of Lerna, the Hydra stirred. Chapter 8. The Swamp of Lerna. The songs of Heracles' triumph over the Nemean Lion had barely faded when word of his next labor spread across Tiryns. King Eurystheus, though cowed by the hero's strength, could not relent. Envy gnawed at his heart, and Hera, ever the enemy of Zeus' son, whispered venom into his ear. Together, fear and malice birthed a new command. Heracles shall go to the swamps of Lerna, Eurystheus declared. There he shall slay the Hydra, the serpent of 100 heads, whose breath poisons the very air. If he fails, his corpse shall rot among the marshes, and the gods shall know he was never favored. Thus began the second labor, the journey to Lerna. From the valleys of Nemea, Heracles journeyed southward, through rocky hills and olive groves, until the land sank into marshes where the waters of the sea mingled with the earth. The air grew foul, heavy with the stench of decay. Flies swarmed in thick clouds, biting and buzzing without end. Villagers he passed along the way trembled at his approach, begging him not to go. The Hydra is death, they cried. It poisons the wells, it slays our cattle, and its breath withers even the trees. No man who enters its swamp returns. Heracles only tightened the lion's hide across his shoulders. I am not no man, he answered. I am the son of Zeus. The swamp revealed at last. He came to the waters of Lerna, a place where earth and sea melted into a mire of death. The ground squelched beneath his feet, sucking at his sandals. Pools of black water steamed with foul vapors, and reeds taller than a man swayed, though no wind stirred them. In the distance, he heard it the hissing of countless serpents, a chorus rising from the heart of the swamp. Each hiss was a blade across the ears, each sound thick with menace. Heracles' grip tightened upon his club, but his eyes gleamed with resolve. Come then, he muttered. Show me the terror that even kings fear to name. The first glimpse of the Hydra, the water stirred. Ripples spread across the mire, and bubbles rose as if the earth itself were boiling. From the depths, a shadow moved, vast and coiling. Then it came, heads upon heads, writhing like a nest of serpents fused into one monstrous body. 9 heads reared above Heracles, though legend spoke that more might emerge if one were cut. When it opened its mouths, a stench poured forth that blackened grass and withered flowers. Heracles set his feet upon firm ground and raised his club. By Zeus' thunder you shall fall. The first clash the Hydra struck with lightning speed. One head lunged, fangs dripping venom. Heracles swung his club and shattered its skull. the force of the blow sending fragments across the swamp. But even as he roared in triumph, 2 new heads sprouted from the stump, hissing louder, snapping with twice the fury. Another lunged from the side, and Heracles barely rolled aside in time. Venom splashed where he had stood, burning the earth into smoking pits. The hero gritted his teeth. So it grows stronger with each wound, he realized. Then strength alone will not prevail. The swamp turns against him as he fought. The swamp itself seemed to rise against him. The reeds tangled around his legs, the mud pulled at his feet, and the air grew thick with poison. His lungs burned, his vision swam, and sweat poured down his body. Yet still he fought, crushing skull after skull with his mighty club. Each time more heads grew, until the Hydra loomed, taller than the trees, its many voices shrieking like a storm of demons. Even Heracles, son of Zeus, staggered under the weight of despair, the aid of Iolaus. But the gods did not leave him unaided. From the ridge above the swamp came Iolaus, his loyal nephew, who had followed, though Heracles had not asked it. I shall keep them from returning. Before Heracles could protest, Iolaus seized a burning torch. Each time Heracles crushed or severed a head, Iolaus pressed fire to the wound, searing the flesh. Heads fell, and this time no more returned. The final head at last. Only one remained, the central head, larger and more venomous than the rest. Heracles swung his club, but it shattered upon the beast's skull. The hide of this head was deathless. No mortal weapon could pierce it. Then Athena's voice whispered through the reeds, "Bury it, son of Zeus. What cannot be slain may be bound." Heracles seized a boulder with both hands, greater than any mortal man could lift. With a roar, he smashed the Hydra's final head to the ground and rolled the stone atop it, pinning it forever in the mire. The swamp fell silent. The air cleared, the reeds stilled, and the Hydra was no more. Closing of Chapter 8. Heracles stood, battered and burned, his club broken, his lungs raw with poison. Yet upon his shoulders the lion's hide still gleamed, and at his side stood Iolaus, torch in hand, loyal and unyielding. The second labor was complete. The Hydra lay bound beneath stone, its terror ended. But as Heracles gazed upon the swamp, he knew that each labor only grew harder, each foe darker, each trial more cunning. And in the shadows of Olympus, Hera smiled, already weaving the next torment. The hero's journey had only begun. Chapter 9. Eurystheus' fear grows. The swamps of Lerna lay quiet at last, their poisonous breath stilled beneath the stone that pinned the Hydra's immortal head. With the monster slain, Heracles turned his steps once more toward Tiryns, the stronghold of King Eurystheus. His body bore the marks of the struggle burns upon his arms where venom had splashed, ragged wounds across his shoulders, but his stride was steady, and upon his face burned the calm fire of triumph. By his side walked Iolaus' nephew and loyal companion, carrying the charred torch that had seared the Hydra's wounds. The boy's eyes shone with pride, for he had stood beside the son of Zeus in battle, and together they had overcome what all Greece had feared. The journey home, as they traveled, villages once haunted by the swamp's poison came forth to greet them. Farmers who had lost their flocks now lifted wine to the hero's lips. Children ran beside him, chanting his name. Women wove garlands and placed them upon his shoulders, as if to crown both man and beast alike. But Heracles did not linger in their praise. "The labor is not mine to boast of," he said. "It is the gods who grant strength, and the fire of Iolaus that turned despair into victory." Still, the people whispered. Heracles grows greater with each trial. Who now could stand against him? The fear of Eurystheus, long before Heracles reached Tiryns, word of his victory sped ahead like wildfire. Courtiers whispered it in the king's halls, and Eurystheus, sitting upon his throne, paled at every rumor. "The Hydra," he stammered, "the beast of 100 heads, dead." "Yes, Lord," said his messengers. "Heracles has triumphed. With Iolaus' aid, he seared the wounds with fire. Even the immortal head lies buried beneath stone." At this, Eurystheus' hands trembled. His plan had failed once again. First the lion, now the serpent. Both monsters sent to crush Heracles had instead crowned him with glory. Where once the people spoke Eurystheus' name, now they sang only of the son of Zeus. The king felt the cold hand of fear clutch at his heart. What if Heracles grew so mighty that even a king's command could no longer bind him? The hero returns when Heracles entered Tiryns, the lion's hide still draped across his shoulders. The people filled the streets. They cheered his name, scattering flowers at his feet, crying blessings to Zeus. Behind him marched Iolaus, torch raised high like a symbol of their victory. Eurystheus, however, refused to meet him in the open hall. Instead, he hid within a bronze jar, a great urn cast for sacrifices, now repurposed as his refuge whenever Heracles approached. From within the jar, his voice echoed, sharp and trembling. "Keep your trophies far from me, Heracles. Bring no venom, no serpent's head into my halls. I will take your word and the word of the people as proof enough. From this day forth, you shall present only your deeds, never the monsters themselves." The courtiers laughed in secret at their king's cowardice, but none dared speak it aloud. The twist of Hera's influence. Yet Hera, ever watchful, did not let the moment pass. From her throne upon Olympus, she whispered into Eurystheus' mind, "Do not let the boy Iolaus share in the glory." This was Heracles' labor, and Heracles alone. To have another at his side is to diminish the trial, denounce it, demand more. The king seized upon the idea, for it gave him a weapon to wield against the growing legend. Emerging from his jar, he addressed Heracles with false authority. "You have slain the Hydra, yes, but you did not do it alone. The torch of Iolaus made the victory possible. Therefore, I shall not count this labor among the 12. You shall do another in its place, and your burden remains unlightened." Heracles' eyes burned like embers, but he did not strike the king. Instead, he bowed his head, his voice steady. "So be it. Whether counted or cast aside, the Hydra lies dead. The people live free. Add as many tasks as you will, Eurystheus, for I shall not falter." The people's whisper, though the king's decree sought to diminish him. The people were not so blind. They saw the truth, that Heracles had faced what none else could, and triumphed, whether with help or without. In taverns and temples, they sang of the Hydra's fall. They spoke of the torch that burned like the fire of the gods, of the lion's hide that turned aside every blade, of the hero who wrestled monsters in darkness and emerged shining with dawn. The more Eurystheus tried to belittle him, the greater Heracles became in the eyes of Greece. The king's next command, yet Eurystheus could not relent. Spurred by Hera's whispers and his own gnawing terror, he devised another trial. If the swamps and mountains could not kill Heracles, perhaps the wild beasts of the plains might. Summoning his heralds, he declared, "Heracles shall journey to the land of Cyrenea and bring to me the Cyrenian hind, the golden-horned deer, sacred to Artemis. Let him chase it across mountains and rivers. Let him feel the fury of the goddess herself if he dares lay hand upon her beast." The courtiers gasped, for to anger Artemis was folly. Yet Eurystheus only smiled, believing at last he had set an impossible task. Closing of Chapter 9. Thus Heracles returned from Lerna, his triumph twisting into fresh burdens by the will of Eurystheus and the malice of Hera. The Hydra lay slain. Yet his labors grew no lighter. Instead, a new challenge awaited, one that would test not his strength, but his endurance and his respect for the will of the gods. For in the forests of Arcadia, the golden-horned hind awaited a creature not of terror, but of divine sanctity. And Heracles, bound by fate, would have to capture what none dared touch. The road of trials stretched ever onward, and the shadow of destiny lengthened with each step. The golden-horned deer, sacred to Artemis, Heracles left Tiryns in silence. Elos watched him depart, but this time the hero walked alone. For this task, no companion could share the burden. The sacred beast, its antlers shone with tips of gold, and its hooves struck the earth like bronze upon stone. It roamed the high forests of Arcadia, untouchable by mortals, swift as the wind. Some said it belonged to Artemis herself, yoked once to her chariot when she hunted across the night sky. Heracles' resolve, as Heracles journeyed northward, he prayed beneath the stars, "Lady Artemis, huntress of the moon, hear me. Not for glory do I seek your hind, but for the compulsion of a cowardly king. But if the fates demand it, grant me the skill to take your beast without harm." The forest winds whispered no reply, only the distant call of owls. Heracles tightened his grip on his bow and pressed onward. The first glimpse, Heracles tracked the creature across valleys and rivers, over mountains capped with snow, through groves where sunlight barely touched the earth. Many times he saw only a shimmer of gold between the trees, the fleeting gleam of antlers vanishing like mist. At last, one morning, as dawn spilled fire over the peaks, he saw it clearly, the Cyrenian hind, drinking from a stream. Heracles raised his bow, but his hands trembled. To loose an arrow would mean wounding what was holy. Slowly, he lowered the weapon. This was not a quarry to kill. This was a trial of patience, endurance, and reverence. The year-long pursuit. For a full year, he chased the hind across the breadth of Greece. Through the mountains of Arcadia he ran, his footsteps echoing in frozen passes. Across the rivers of Thessaly he swam, his mighty arms cutting the current. In the plains of Thrace he followed its hoofprints, only to watch it vanish like a shadow into the trees. Winter bit with icy teeth, and still he pursued. Spring came, and flowers bloomed in his wake, yet the hind always slipped just beyond his grasp. The people who saw him pass began to tell tales. Heracles follows the deer of Artemis. Perhaps he is cursed. Perhaps he seeks the goddess herself. But none dared intervene, for they knew the matter was touched by the divine. The capture at the creature bent its head to drink, the golden antlers dipping into the silver water. Moving with the silence of a hunter born, he crept upon the beast. With a sudden leap, Heracles threw himself forward, arms closing around the hind's slender form. It kicked and thrashed hooves, striking sparks against stone, but his grip was unyielding. Gently, carefully, he bound its legs with soft cords, so as not to wound it. The hind cried out, a sound like a silver bell. But the will of a king, bound by Hera's spite, the wrath of Artemis, no sooner had the words left his lips than the forest darkened and the air shivered with divine power. From the shadows of the trees stepped Artemis herself, radiant and terrible, bow in hand, arrows gleaming like moonlight. Her voice rang like thunder over the valley. The Cyrenian hind is sacred. I will not suffer its capture. Heracles fell to one knee, the bound hind before him. Eurystheus commanded me to bring this creature alive. If I fail, he will heap more cruelties upon my shoulders. Grant me this boon, that I may show the beast to the king, and afterward release it unharmed. Few mortals had spoken to her without trembling. Few had pursued her hind for a year without arrow or spear. Very well, son of Zeus, take the hind to Eurystheus, but swear upon the sticks you shall not harm it, nor allow it to suffer. Release it once your task is witnessed, or my arrows will find your heart. The people marveled, for the creature glowed like the moon at dawn, and no mortal had ever touched it. Eurystheus, upon seeing it, nearly leaped from his throne in greed at last. The hind of Artemis, bring it into my stables, let it be mine. Once witnessed, it must be released, lest her wrath consume us all. The king raged, demanding, pleading, even commanding, but Heracles did not yield. At last, with the eyes of the court upon him, Eurystheus was forced to acknowledge the deed. With a bitter heart, he marked the labor complete, the release. True to his oath, Heracles carried the hind back to the forests of Arcadia. There, beneath the watchful gaze of Artemis herself, he loosed the cords and set it free. The golden antlers vanished into the trees, and with them the weight of the trial. The goddess gave a single nod, her expression unreadable, and faded into the mist. Heracles stood alone, weary yet unbroken, knowing that once again he had triumphed not by brute force, but by patience, reverence, and cunning. Closing of Season 2. Story 2 thus ended, the third labor of Heracles. The Cyrenian hind, untouchable by all others, had been captured and released without harm. Yet Eurystheus' hatred burned hotter still, fanned by the whispers of Hera. More labors lay ahead, some of cunning, some of strength, and some that would test even the son of Zeus to the very edge of his soul.